Hello guys, welcome to my new video, welcome to my channel. So for today I have prepared some notes. I want to speak about post-traumatic stress disorder, and I was using this fantastic book which is called The Human Givens. I was trying to put it into my own words, of course, and I also added my own opinions somewhere. So yes, let's start, because it's a quite difficult subject. So today I'm going to be reading notes, so hopefully it's okay for you. Many people are struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder. It is literally a terror or a private emotional hell for the person. Post-traumatic stress disorder may appear when there is a powerful emotional memory of a life-threatening event or events experienced in the past. Trauma is coded into the limbic system called the amygdala. The trauma was literally imprinted and trapped there, and it contains all the information surrounding the traumatic event. It is important to understand that our amygdala is also storing all the survival templates. The amygdala's role is to alert us to danger and stimulate the body's fight or flight reaction. Usually everything we experience is formed in our brain into a sensory memory, and it is stored into the hippocampus. These memories are then subsequently transferred to the neocortex. However, if we experience something very difficult, then the emotional reaction can be so strong that it will code itself in a wordless form into the amygdala for later pattern matching in the case of a future emergency. The stronger the emotional reaction, the more the amygdala is trying to take care of the incoming pattern, and it won't let the hippocampus do its usual work. Therefore, when pattern is saved in the amygdala, then any certain smell, sound, object, place, literally anything can trigger the alarm reaction, strong emotion, or fight or flight response. This happens on an unconscious level. This is when the post-traumatic stress disorder is expressing itself. In the real world, the amygdala is scanning the environment for anything that is similar to any aspect of a traumatic event, just in order to protect us. Usually 25% of people exposed to traumatic events will develop post-traumatic stress disorder. In order for a human to remain healthy, the vast energies mobilized for survival have to be discharged. The discharge completes the activated response to a threat and helps us to return to a normal state of functioning. This process is called homeostasis. Homeostasis, in other way, maintaining a constant internal environment, is an ability of an organism to respond appropriately to any given circumstances and return the functioning of an organism into a normal state. There is a video from the National Geographic where the helicopter is following the fast-running polar bear, which is then shot by a tranquilizer dart. Later on, when the bear comes out of a state of shock, it starts to shaking its body and limbs uncontrollably. Then it takes 3 long deep breaths. What bear is doing is actually shaking off the stress accumulated during the capture. It is completing activated fight or flight pattern. It is discharging frozen energy. I have mentioned the link to the video in my description, so please feel free to see it. I'm not sure how this could apply to the human being, but I believe that even humans have some systems in the place which can discharge the traumatic emotional stimuli if it is approached the right way. I personally think that many times we can be traumatized because we experience some heavy emotional load and we don't have any functioning processes in place to take care of this load. Therefore, it is stored in the amygdala until we make something out of it with the help of an intelligent and compassionate psychologist, or over time by appropriate life lessons, learning and reasoning, so it can be moved from the amygdala to neocortex as a normal memory. Animals and most humans don't get traumatized if they properly discharge the accumulated stress energy, which was activated by fight or flight response. A person who is to develop a post-traumatic stress disorder was in a profound and prolonged state of trance during the traumatic event, while the horrific experience was deeply wired into the amygdala. The useful way of completing the activated fight or flight pattern can be a talk-in therapy, where the event can be slowly pulled off from the amygdala and converted into normal memory. During the process of healing the trauma, the awareness of the person has to be focused on the present, so the higher cortex can reframe the memory as a past event and acknowledge it in a realistic perspective. The emotional charge has to be set off in order for a higher cortex to function properly. Cortex is very important for a feedback mechanism to help to de-traumatize the memory. This needs to be done in a correct way, because without the input of the neocortex, the traumatic memory is further programmed into the amygdala, therefore trauma is even deepened. In the effective treatment, we want to recode the traumatic memory into low arousal memory. When we recall a memory from amygdala, it has to be recoded, which means new proteins have to be synthesized in the amygdala to reconsolidate the memory. All this has to be done in a low arousal state, so the traumatic reaction pattern can be dissolved. The neocortex has to evaluate the imprint, understand that it no longer represents a threat, and modify it. It will always remain as an unpleasant memory, but it won't be functioning as something hidden that keeps the brain on alert for danger from the environment. This also helps to improve the attention capacity potential. The brain no longer scans the environment with the old pattern matching imprint, as it was freed up from the amygdala. It doesn't have to use the valuable energy to maintain the template anymore. In the 20th century, some therapists were using hypnosis for healing post-traumatic stress disorder. Most of the patients were coming from war zones. There is a story where the patient was brought for treatment and hypnotized. While being hypnotized, he was asked some certain questions. The session looked like the patient is living these traumas again. He was shouting, having conversations in the form of a dialogue. He was acting like he is again under the influence of the terrifying emotions. It appeared that emotions that have been originally repressed have been now worked out through the powerful speech. This helped him to relive the traumatic event in such an emotional vividness that after the treatment he would collapse into a profound sleep. After waking up, he would be completely recovered. Many of them would collapse for a minute or two, not reacting to ordinary stimuli, and then burst into a flood of tears while reporting that symptoms had suddenly disappeared. They still had a memory of an unpleasant event, but finally without hysterical anxiety. When the therapy hasn't reached the moment of emotional collapse, then drugs were used to increase the amount of emotional stimulation, as the emotional collapse always brought an improvement. Even it sounds crazy, but only in the collapse state the pattern matching imprint was deactivated. Just as a reminder, the imprint of a life-threatening situation is coded into the amygdala. Amygdala constantly scans the environment for potential pattern matching stimuli just to keep you safe. The healthy idea is to convince the amygdala that the imprinted template is no longer needed for survival. Any treatment which enables a traumatic memory to be turned into an ordinary functioning memory is going to cure post-traumatic stress disorder and phobias. Some post-traumatic stress disorders are very hard to heal because they haven't happened as a symptom of one particular traumatic event. Being in a toxic relationship can be a huge series of negative trance-inducing events where the little traumatic memories are imprinted over time, and post-traumatic stress disorder is therefore fragmented. This post-traumatic stress disorder can be much harder to treat, as many small events need to be recalled and reframed in order to be moved from the amygdala to ordinary memory. Sometimes the brain will do the work even with a metaphorical explanation, and it will add the right pieces into the right place. Therefore, some traumas can be healed even without speaking about the particular subject that has caused the traumatic memory. There are some therapists who are using a fast phobia cure, or we can call it a rewind technique. The rewind technique allows the sensory memory to be converted into the narrative and be put into perspective. I will put the link for the rewind technique explanation into the description, so please feel free to follow the link. Okay guys, thank you much for watching this video. I know the information was quite dense and maybe complicated, but for me personally this is one of the most interesting explanation in a depth, like how the brain works and how the trauma is created in a brain and eventually how to get rid of it. And I really like this explanation. Guys, please give me a thumbs up and share with your friends, subscribe, please leave me a comment. I love to speak to my subscribers, I love to speak to people through the comments. Have a beautiful day, see you next time, bye bye.